Welcome to TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John, that's my cohort and commentary Ashton, and this is our Lucha Underground review. And we come to you tonight with this Lucha Underground review in celebration because it's Cien. It's the 100th episode of Lucha Underground, and it was as exemplary as the preceding 99 episodes of Lucha Underground. I thoroughly enjoyed tonight's episode. We finally rounded out our Gift of the Gods match for Ultima Lucha Trace. The final Aztec medallion was awarded on tonight's episode. We got some great continuation with the Prince Puma Johnny Mundo storyline heading into Ultima Lucha Trace with the Atomicos match, and the Matanza Rey Mysterio rivalry is taking a very interesting turn, all on the 100th episode, and some amazing cinematics as is to be expected. We're also on display tonight. Partner, what'd you think of it?
I love this episode of Lucha Underground so much. Really, I was very kind of apprehensive, if not full-blown, against Rey Mysterio versus Matanza main eventing the show over Pentagon versus Azteca. But in hindsight, I think they made the right call there. Everything else on the show was freaking awesome, including those matches themselves. But the only thing that I would have complained about was the structure, and it ended up being in sort of lined up in a way that ended up making sense anyway. So yeah, I'm good, man. This was
yeah, because we definitely got left with an interesting cliffhanger on tonight's episode as it relates to the Matanza Mysterio rivalry. With that said, though, I don't want to waste any time. Let us get right into our Lucha Underground review. And we open with a cinematic. And the reason I sound so deflated, because I normally adore Lucha Underground cinematics, is because this cinematic contained the Scourge of the Earth, Ricky Mandel.
That's Ricky Mundo now!
I will not be referring to that fucking urchin by that name.
But that's his name. That is his name now. That's his official legal name.
I will not. I will.
Yeah,
well, I already said on live
react. You all you want, but you're going to be incorrect every time.
And look, you can either waste energy correcting me every time, taking time away from the review, or you could just call him by that name for the both of us. I really don't care which.
I will proceed to do exactly that.
And that's fair enough. So what we're getting at here is Worldwide Underground sans Johnny Mundo are gathered around the locker room as Ricky Mandel is sharing what looks to be an identification card. And, of course, we later find out it's his driver's license. And he got it changed to the name Ricky Mundo. And I believe it was PJ that actually, no, it was Taya, Johnny Mundo's fiance, a person that's closer to him than most, rightly points out in her infinite wisdom that Johnny isn't going to like this. Of course, Jack Evans was just yucking it up on his whiteboard because his jaw's still wired shut. And Johnny Mundo slides into view because of his, omniscience and his omnipotence, just knowing as soon as his name's heard, he appears on the scene. What am I not going to like? And then Ricky Mandel presents to him the driver's license. And Johnny Mundo rightfully has a reaction of bewilderment, tinged with disgust, if I had to guess, and says, well, change it back. There's only one Mundo, and that's me, the Lucha Underground champion, the guy that actually does shit. And Ricky is just like, oh, but you're my hero. No. And, Ricky says, oh, am I finally a part of Worldwide Underground? And then an act almost as repugnant as the license itself. He draws Mundo into a non-consensual embrace. He touches him. Like, I need you all to understand, to get on my level for 2 seconds, and to understand how disgusting that is. Johnny Mundo just felt arms wrapped around him that belonged to a mouth breather. That is horrible. That is a scarring experience, and quite honestly, I hope Benji checked in on Mundo, because we didn't see him at all tonight, which was weird, because you would have thought that he would have chastised Mandel more than anybody. But I hope that Mundo is just practicing self-care right now, and he's getting all the mental health provisions that he needs after such a traumatic experience. This cinematic made me sick. Ricky Mandel has no place near the name Mundo, and he sure as hell has no place in Worldwide Underground. But hey, that's just my completely unbiased and intelligent opinion. Let's get other voices that aren't mine. Partner, what'd you think of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Mundo is handling this relatively well. I think he's, you mentioned that he should be going and making sure to take care of himself and that self-care. And I mean, I feel like this whole experience has been kind of therapeutic for him. I mean, being able to embrace the name of your hero really just really must make him feel incredible.
That said, that's a very interesting opinion, to say the least. I have nothing else to say about this cinematic. Of course, I do always enjoy all Lucha Underground cinematics. This is a very interesting tone setter because we do go from this right into the Atomicos match. But before I go to the comments,
and I love too that right as soon as we get into the Atomicos match, after Johnny Mundo finds out that Ricky changed his name to Mundo, immediately rejects him and just says, "Listen, kid, you're just not going to cut it for this match," and benches his ass.
And I love it because if you're me, you're like, oh man, you're finally getting rid of the dead weight and the guy that's been responsible for all of Worldwide Underground setbacks. But if you're looking at it in a more general way at the Mundo character, it's still perfect because what is the Mundo character in Lucha Underground? He's egocentric, narcissistic, and petty. And the idea that somebody would be encroaching on his turf that isn't even a quarter of the athlete that he is, and, sharing that name, he's obviously going to have a very, jealous response to that, a very petty response to that, and saying, well, there's only one Mundo, and that's me. Spotlight's on me. No hogging it for you. You get benched. You don't get anything at all. So it really is great no matter how you look at it. Whether you're pro Mundo like myself or you're just looking at more from just a character perspective, it's a great move. And the person that takes Mandel's place is Marty the Moth Martinez. Two of my favorite people on Lucha Underground, two of the people that I've probably lauded the most on this podcast on the same team.
Yeah, that's true. You absolutely adore. I mean, obviously, Mundo is your guy, but you've always been very high in praise of Marty, and really, we both have. And Marty is one of the people that we know listens to TWitWoW, so shout out to Marty the Moth. We love.
Actually, if I may, very quickly, since you pointed that out quite rightly, Marty, if you're listening to this, I want you to know that you've got my personal endorsement to be the next Worldwide Underground member. You're a million times better than Ricky Mandel, and may I say...
I just want to interrupt you there because we got a $2 super chat from Iconic Player One saying, and I quote, Ricky Mundo.
Well, yeah, great way to spend your $2 there. Thanks. But
a great way to spend your $2. I think people should donate $2 for a super chat every time you say it wrong.
Saying it right. And regardless, Marty, keeping the focus on a superior athlete, you pull off the bandana beautifully, my friend. And I was so proud of your performance tonight because unlike a certain urchin that just chooses to play, oh, look at what name I'm adopting today, you actually got the job done for your team. And for that, you are in my debt because, yes, Worldwide Underground was brilliant in this match, as they are in every match. But, I mean, we got to have some talk about the opposing team, I guess. What did you think about Puma's team, Ashton?
Puma's team was really strange to me. I was actually a little bit disappointed by this team, mostly because there wasn't a guy that I was really expecting, the Mac. Like, how are you going to have a match against Worldwide Underground and have Sexy Star on your team, but not have the Mac on your team? And especially because Phoenix was there, and he didn't make any sense given what you were supposed to be preparing for, which was a match with Worldwide Underground. Phoenix made sense against Marty, but you couldn't have possibly known that Marty was going to be in the match before. So Phoenix really just didn't make sense.
Yeah, I could understand that. I guess, I don't know. Maybe Puma just was looking at quality, and Phoenix is a former Lucha Underground champion, albeit that reign was only a week, and the first ever Triple Crown champion. So maybe he's like, oh, who's the most quality person I can get that isn't, as we've already established, like Azteca Jr. or Ray, who I have that history with? Well, Phoenix has done a lot. Let me go with him. But yeah, I don't know. I can see what you're saying. Like, the whole thing, if I could use a word, did feel a bit contrived for the narrative twist of Marty being the replacement. But you know what? I can give Lucha Underground a pass because wrestling companies have done that before. Lucha Underground does it.
Here's the thing:
time.
it's not like Phoenix has no history with these guys whatsoever. He does, because, and really that almost makes me think maybe Cage was the worst pick here, because Cage doesn't have history. Or no, he does have history with Johnny. So really, they all made sense. I just wish Mac would have replaced one of them, because I think Mac has a deeper history specifically with Mundo than Cage or Phoenix. But yeah, I mean, to be fair, if we think back to season 2 and earlier in season 3, and even no, not season 1, but definitely season 2 and early season 3, Phoenix was PJ and Jack Evans's tag team partner in a trios tournament, and then they were going to get a shot of the trios titles, and Johnny Mundo beat the shit out of Phoenix backstage and took his place, and they won the titles and formed Worldwide Underground. So that right there is like, well, yeah, there's history there. And then I think Johnny and Phoenix ended up feuding after that as well. And Cage obviously had his feud with Mundo also in season 2, but I feel like Mac was more recent.
Yeah, Mac was more recent, but I mean, Phoenix and Cage do have their own history, because also keep in mind, Phoenix, with his super friends at the time, Drago and Aerostar, they ended Mundo's reign at Ultima Lucha Dos. So,
well, the Worldwide Underground as a team.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it does work out. I mean, again, like, it is a bit on the nose that, like, we know Phoenix was the partner, and then at the last minute, like, Mundo does switch out Mandel with Marty the Moth. But you know what? That's just really getting into nitpicky territory, and it doesn't change the fact that this is a really fun Atomicos match.
Of course.
I loved how the babyface team, worked together, for a time, which we'll get to that in a second. And Worldwide Underground, I love that it really is like just all about Johnny Mundo, which every faction with a heel at the head, it's going to be like that. But I love that they do it in such a fun way. Like, one instance I can think of, Cage is in the ring, and Mundo had gotten the tag only seconds prior, so he's still very fresh, but he immediately tags Taya to take care of Cage. And then another instance, I think Cage was kind of on a warpath, so PJ and Marty, they nope out of it, and then Mundo's in front, like Taya's behind Mundo, but Mundo very quickly does the switch, and he actually pushes Taya into Cage just to make sure that she's the one that gets fed. Like, I love it. It's great. I think they do great, like, comedic spots and all about protecting Mundo, so that's awesome. Puma's just fire in 1 versus 3 situations. So we saw a great flurry of offense from him against Worldwide Underground. And we even got some narrative sprinklings here, really just all throughout. The first of which being Jeremiah Crane showing up out of nowhere, and he takes Cage's gauntlet from him. Cage becomes very much aware of this only moments after, and he gives pursuit to Crane. So then we've got like this 4-on-3 advantage in favor of Worldwide Underground. The match continues to break down. Taya breaks off with Sexy Star because they've had their beef. Marty and PJ are like dealing with Phoenix, and Mundo's alone with Puma. But then PJ is able to get back in the ring. Him and Mundo start double teaming Puma, and that ultimately ends in Mundo hitting End of the World on Puma and pinning him for a 3 count. So I love that the story is, the week before that, Mundo was like, oh, I know I can beat you, Puma. I've done it before. Obviously, Puma's beaten Mundo before. We've got this career versus title match at Ultima Lucha Trace. And in the next week out, Mundo does what he said he was going to do. He pins Puma. Can he do it again at Ultima Lucha Trace? So, loving where the narrative's going. I mean, what did you think about this match?
Yeah, man, I thought this match was a lot of fun, like you said. I love that even though Johnny pinned Puma, they still protected Puma in such a way that it didn't seem like this was really like a fair fight,
Exactly.
They really went out of their way to make it favor Worldwide Underground, because really, even though they didn't necessarily use Jack Evans and Ricky Mundo, those guys were still at ringside, so they could have helped. And their presence, I'm sure you could say, was like a distraction to the opposing team. Plus, you had Cage leave, and he was like the powerhouse of that team, and they didn't have him anymore. So it was 4-on-3 then. So yeah, man, I think they did a really good job of protecting Puma here. But the fact that Mundo pinned Puma, I mean, I don't know about you, but that's kind of concerning to me, because I feel like every Ultima Lucha so far, Puma's come out on top in the build and then lost the match, and now he's losing the build. So what does that mean?
I agree with you. That is a thought that's definitely crossed my mind, but in the moment, I'm just enjoying that Worldwide Underground got a win. Whatever happens at Ultimate Lucha Trace, you're going to get all the quality live reactions, folks, when it happens. So I'm not even going to necessarily bother with it for the moment. But in the post-match, too, we even got more development because Marty immediately goes to creeping on Melissa because we know that really for all 3 seasons, ever since he showed up, that she's been kind of an object of his fixation. And he like starts to really touch her, in the face, grab her by the hair. It seems like it's really going to take an ugly turn. Melissa slaps Marty repeatedly, which he seems to like because he smiles, and I think he gets off on it on a certain level. But then, though, finally Phoenix super kicks Marty, protecting Melissa for another week. And of course, we know I was going to say I'm curious how this will culminate, but we know how it's going to culminate, at least in a way, because it's a mask versus hair match at Ultima Lucha Trace between Phoenix and Marty the Moth. So I'm very much looking forward to that match. If I'm honest, I think that's my second most anticipated match, right behind the world title match. So yeah, I'm really excited for that. Do you have anything to say about the latest Marty Phoenix development?
That super kick was amazing and sounded like it literally took Marty's head off.
Yeah, it was very well done by Phoenix. And yeah, we'll see.
You know what? I'm just going to say it because I was going to say it at the end of this episode anyway, so I might as well just say it now. The name of next week's episode of Lucha Underground, are you ready for this?
What is it?
The Rise of the Ring Announcer.
Interesting.
I'm thinking we might get Melissa in a match, man. I think we might see her get in the ring. We saw her getting physical with Marty, and that was the first time we saw her get really physical with anyone. Like, she shoved people away before, but she was throwing slaps, and it was like 6 or 7 of them, too. So I think we might see her in the ring next week, man. I'm calling it.
Dude, how much do you want to bet because of how perverse Dario is and, like, how he just is always looking for, like, the next new thing and looking to get violence any way he can get it? Like, there's a cinematic with him in his office, and he calls Melissa into his office, and he says, look, you and Marty have had these problems for a long time, so you're going to make your Lucha Underground debut tonight against Marty, because we already well know that Lucha Underground does intergender matches. I could very easily see Melissa versus Marty next week, and Marty would have no qualms hurting her, because in his own sick way.
But you know what, though? I was thinking more like a mixed tag, like her and Phoenix against Marty and Mariposa.
They might do that. The only reason I went straight to the one-on-one route is because Cueto is more of like a piece of shit kind of character.
You know what? That's true, but he has a deep appreciation for Melissa. Like, he even said in that like top 10, Dario Cueto's top 10 favorite things about Lucha Underground, she was on that list. Like, he loves the way that she does her ring announcing. He's already pointed out that he thinks she's the best ring announcer in the wrestling business right now.
Yeah. So we'll see, but I mean, I definitely
wouldn't put her like that much in harm's way. He would have Phoenix in there to at least be like a buffer to the damage inflicted upon her.
Yeah. Either way, though, I do agree with your sentiments, because either she's going to be a part of a very significant cinematic, or we're even going to see her in an in-ring capacity, because we know that she did have training, once upon a time. I remember she once shared like a GIF of her competing, I think, with a tag partner she had. And then I'm like, holy shit, you wrestle? And she's like, oh, I used to, and now I'm just doing the ring announce. So she may have to dust off the boots. We'll have to wait and see. But you got anything else you want to say about this?
I don't think so. We can move on. Up next, we had a backstage cinematic where we get to see this whole thing unfold with Cage and Jeremiah, where Cage chased Jeremiah back to the backstage area. We see Jeremiah show up behind Katrina with the gauntlet, and she reaches for it, but he pulls it away and basically tells her, like, he doesn't actually explicitly say it, but he implies that he wants to make out with her, and that's like the exchange, like, oh, you make out with me and then you get the gauntlet. But Mill sees this from far off in the distance and just charges in with a spear on Jeremiah, takes him out. And then Katrina grabs the gauntlet and starts walking away, but she gets caught by Cage because, as I mentioned earlier, Cage was chasing Jeremiah in the back. So he might have lost Jeremiah at some point because it took him this long to get here, but he did get here, and he got here in time to stop Katrina, and he was like choking her up against the wall. She tried to teleport away, but the gauntlet wouldn't allow her to teleport with it in her possession. So she dropped it, teleported, and then Cage got his hands on it. But then we saw Mill and Jeremiah come up from behind and start beating on him. And we just had all three of these guys beating the shit out of each other. And next thing you know, Dario Cueto bends over, grabs the gauntlet, and gives it a speculative stare, heavily implying that we are going to get a three-way match between Mill, Cage, and Jeremiah for the gauntlet.
Now, if you remember, on live reactions, I said I had a question that I wanted to ask you, which would kind of get the ball rolling on this discussion. Because, look, in my mind, first of all, just to get out of the way, the cinematic was brilliantly done. I loved it. I love the altercation between Cage, Crane, and Muertes. I think that's going to be a sick-ass triple threat. But you know, with Lucha Underground, you and I, while we enjoy the in-ring product, you know what you and I really sink our teeth into is the narrative. We've said that time and again on here. So I'm looking at this from a narrative perspective, and the question that came to my mind when we were doing live reactions that I wanted to ask you is, if Cueto does what you were thinking in live reactions, you know, he's got the gauntlet, he sees the violence, he puts two and two together, he sees the opportunity, he says, hey guys, Ultimate Lucha Trace, triple threat for the gauntlet. I guess the most immediate question is, who do you think would go over in that match? But you may want to save that for when we do preview and predictions, because I'm assuming we will do preview and predictions. And two, the question that I do think you can answer here and that I really care about, is that going to put Cueto in hot water with Winter? Because, see, my thought process was, right, that if Cueto does this, he's got the gauntlet, he's going to use it as like the carrot for these three guys to kill each other. That could interfere with, that could complicate the plans that Winter and this whole, you know, organization, you know, bringing gods, you know, back to the earth and stuff like that, have for Cage, because the whole thing was the god needs a vessel. Cage was already chosen as that vessel. If the, I'm struggling to find a word, but if that fusion, if you will, isn't finished, if it's interrupted and say it has a new claimant, say Jeremiah wins it, you know, what happens? You know, what happens to Winter and the grander plans? So do you think Cueto, if he pulls the trigger on this, could find himself in the crosshairs of Winter, of the Lord, and of those people that are trying to, you know, get human vessels so that the gods can return to Earth?
That's a really good point. I didn't even think about that, but you're probably right. Yeah, I mean, you've got to think that just by Cueto removing the gauntlet from Cage's vicinity, you would definitely have to think that that would, if not completely interrupt the process, at least slow it down. And yeah, I think that and I would call it a possession, not a fusion. But yeah,
I even thought of the word when you started talking. I'm like, possession was the word I was looking for.
Yeah,
possession.
Yeah, I would definitely think it would definitely slow it down, if not halt or reset that process entirely. And we don't know for sure if Cage is going to get the gauntlet back. And you've also got to realize, if Mill wins the gauntlet, I don't think he's going to keep it for himself. I think he's going to give it to Katrina, who will then give it to Captain Vasquez, which is the exact opposite of what Agent Winter wants to happen. So this definitely creates a conundrum that Agent Winter will not be happy about, but I don't even know if Cueto is aware of how angry this could make Winter.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to pose the question to you, because I wanted to look beyond the match most immediately and look at the narrative repercussions. I can't imagine this is going to sit well with them. I could very easily envision a cinematic where Winter just asks Cueto, what the hell were you thinking? Because, again, it is all about these possessions, these gods finding vessels so that they can do whatever they want to do on Earth, which, I mean, clearly is bringing destruction and bedlam, you know? And with Cueto interrupting that for the most immediate payoff of, oh, but my Ultima Lucha Trace event, you know, Cueto, and this is another thing too, because again, with Lucha Underground's narrative, it's not just one consequence in a vacuum, it's usually a chain of consequences, graver consequences, if you will. If Cueto demonstrates to Winter, and by extension the Lord, how myopic he is, right? Because he's not seeing the bigger picture. He's seeing, oh, how can I make the most out of my Ultima Lucha Trace event? You know, it's very egocentric. It's very short-sighted. If they see that from Cueto, they could start seeing him as a liability instead of an asset. Does this put Cueto's life at peril? This kind of blunder that he's potentially making here. You know, so these are all thoughts that crossed through my mind during live reactions tonight.
Wow, I'm really glad that you remembered to bring that up because that's a really intriguing point, and I definitely did not think of that.
Yeah, I mean, because these are powerful people, and the thing is, dude, like the only reason I'm even bringing this up to you and to our audience is that I think you can agree with me that Lucha Underground has gone out of their way to show that a hierarchy exists here, and the top is not Dario Cueto. Like he's not even second in command or even third in command, I'd say. Like I really would say, and I know Cueto, his pride would hurt hearing this, and he'd probably sick Matanza on me. He's probably closest in proximity to a foot soldier, if that. Like to me, he's a patsy to these people, a guy that just gets stuff done, and he'll probably be the first casualty when the fruits are coming to bear for Winter and for the Lord. So he doesn't really have much stroke. So that's another reason why I take the leap of if Winter reports back to the Lord like, oh, you're not going to believe what Cueto did, he's actually putting that gauntlet up for grabs again. He's totally risking changing the vessel, upsetting our plan's trajectory, its due course, all for the sake of his Ultimate Lucha Trace event. You know, the Lord might just give a simple throat slit and say, well, he's done. We got no need for him anymore. And here's the thing, too. I mean, I don't want to make too much of a reach. I'm going to, pull my shoulder out here. But if that wouldn't happen, if the Lord would choose for Cueto to win, that might provide more fodder for your theory that the Lord is Cueto's father. Because why wouldn't you do away with him after proving to be such a liability unless you shared a deeper connection with him?
Yeah.
Just an inside look into my mind here, and I hope you guys enjoyed that. But that's all I have to say.
I'm telling you, man, I've been calling that for a season and a half now, which, based on Lucha Underground, has been like a full 2 years because of the take. But still, I've been calling it for a while, and all the evidence that we've gotten is just pointing more and more to me being right about this one. And it can't have been spoiled for me because, from what I understand, that hasn't been revealed yet. So I'm going purely based on speculation, and especially because I predicted it in season 2. So obviously it wasn't spoiled for me because when I predicted it, we've seen everything that's happened since I predicted it, and it hasn't been revealed yet. So,
well, and here's the thing.
It's out there.
Our predictions could collide here because you already know my predictions that this is going to have major repercussions for Cueto. So if I'm right, and they are pissed about this, what if the final 5 minutes of Ultima Lucha Trace are Cueto, answering the consequences? What if he finally has a face-to-face meeting with the Lord because his blunder was so big? Which I will say this, if Cage doesn't win that triple threat, that's just going to make me even more confident that something like that could happen. And the only dialogue we hear is like, oh, hello, son, or something like that. And then bam, fade to black until season 4.
And by the way, guys, I was just scrolling down my Twitter feed, and Lucha Underground tweeted at 8:28 p.m., which would have been pretty much right after the Atomicos match happened. Signed and sealed, it will be delivered. Marty the Moth and Mariposa versus Phoenix and Melissa Santos next week on Lucha Underground.
Damn. Okay, then. Okay. We know where we're going. But yeah, dude, when Cueto took the gauntlet and then you made that prediction that it was going to be like a triple threat for the gauntlet at Ultima Lucha Trace, I'm like, oh shit, he's probably right. But what the hell does that mean narratively for Cueto, for Cage, for the gauntlet, for everybody, really everybody? And yeah, I love this cinematic. And if it spurs like this kind of chain of thought in me, it must have had an impact. So, I mean, is there anything you want to add before we move on?
Let's go ahead. Let's move on. Up next, we had our big match, our second match, the Pentagon versus Azteca match for the medallion, the Aztec medallion. This match was good, but it wasn't as good as I expected it to be. And again, that kind of played into the idea that I thought it was going to I thought it should have main evented because I figured it would be like, holy shit, like 4.5, 5-star kind of match. And it ended up being good, but it just didn't live up to the lofty expectations that I had for it.
Yeah, I could understand that. I think if this match did anything, it just furthered the notion that El Dragon Azteca Jr. is one athletic son of a bitch. Because, like, I'm telling you, and we've been saying it for a while now, and I know you've been, like, especially vocal about it. When Puma ultimately leaves and, he just continues, the whole Ricochet brand of things and that side of his career, I could really see El Dragon Azteca Jr. just picking up that torch and just running with it. Because, god damn, this guy and the stuff he can do, the balance he has. Like, there were multiple, like, setup spots where Pentagon would just vault Azteca over, and he'd land on his feet, whether it was like a wall or an apron or the turnbuckle. Like, he's agile, he's got the balance, he's got the athleticism. He's crazy. He's absolutely crazy. Solid match. I will say, I look forward to when Azteca, and I'm not even talking necessarily in a character way, but when Azteca can kind of step out of his apprenticeship to Rey Mysterio and he kind of rises in credibility, because I think that's the only thing really stopping me from getting fully immersed in his matches is seeing the disparity in credibility. Like, Pentagon Dark's here, and Azteca Jr., I won't insult him and say he's all the way at the bottom, but I think you get what I'm trying to articulate. Like, he's just on a lower level than Pentagon Dark right now. So It was a foregone conclusion to me that Pentagon Dark was going to win. I think the best Azteca Jr. matches for me personally are going to be when I can suspend my disbelief because he's on equal footing with his opposition. And I don't think that day is far behind, for the record. I'm not saying it like it's some faraway dream. I think they've done an excellent job building him up. It's just, I think we all knew how this match was going to go, especially because I think Azteca still has a part to play in the greater Rey Matanza storyline, in my opinion. So Pentagon Dark going over here was a smart move. He wins after the fear factor. And, you already gave your thoughts on the match. Those are my thoughts. In the post-match, Pentagon claims his medallion. He goes to break the arm, but doesn't, only because, though, Matanza runs in the ring. They have a stare down. Pentagon bumps shoulders with Matanza, gets up in Cueto's face, does the Cero Miedo sign, the 3 up, 3 down. And then Matanza proceeds to beat the crap out of Azteca, suplexing him and whatnot. And it looks like he's getting ready, I believe, for the Wrath of the Gods or some type of maneuver. And then Rey finally runs out. He checks on Azteca. And then they more or less get into their match. But before I get into any of that, do you have any thoughts about, Azteca's beatdown or anything else you want to share about Pentagon Dark versus Azteca? Or do you want to just get right into Matanza Rey here?
No, let's just get right into Matanza Rey. Because like I said, with Azteca and Pentagon, I expected more from that match. So really, all I would really have to say about it is that it didn't live up to what I wanted it to.
Right. So I'll let you take the reins, though, with Matanza and Rey. What did you think about this main event?
This was a really good match, man. I thoroughly enjoyed this. It was really, what's the word I'm looking for? Suspenseful, maybe? It was one of those matches where I felt like I was on the edge of my seat because I really am not a big Rey Mysterio fan. And because of that, every time I feel like he was about to win, I was like freaking out, like, no, this can't happen. And by the way, I do have a comment about the Azteca Pentagon match. Some of the near falls in that match were insane. Like, it legitimately felt like Azteca was letting the referee count to 3 and kicking out right at 3 to the point that a different referee might have actually counted it as a 3. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But anyway, getting back to Rey and Matanza, there were a lot of moments in this match where I was scared shitless that Rey was going to win. I was very happy when Matanza did pick up the win, but still, the suspense in this match was real.
Yeah, I really feel like this match, and I've got to credit Lucha Underground for this, because you've got Rey now, and I'm being completely serious. Like, I'm not about to go into Johnny Scumbag mode, but you've got Rey, who is more diminutive in stature, especially relative to Matanza, but he's also a legend, right? He's not a nobody. He's not a scrub. I mean, he does go by, again, the whole El Rey, the king of Lucha Libre kind of thing. So he has that credibility as a legend, despite physically he's giving up a lot to Matanza. But then you have Matanza, who to me goes beyond labels and descriptors of like, oh, legend or this or that. He's a god in a human vessel, and that should never be forgotten. So how do you have these two forces, one that's going to have a lot of stock when it comes, to the world of wrestling and kayfabe, and the other entity that has a lot of stock in terms of the personal world that you have erected over 3 seasons that has a very rich mythology and narrative? And I think they walk that line perfectly to me, because I think the right guy went over, but he went over in a way that protects Rey's credibility as a performer in the wrestling world, because Cueto knocked his foot off the rope. Repeatedly, actually. The ref just never saw it. So, you have that. I feel like Rey in the match felt like he was holding his own with Matanza. He felt very elusive to a lot of Matanza's offensive, but when Matanza would get a hold of Ray, it really did feel like he was ragdolling him. So again, walking that line. So yeah, I think it's always a concern in this match because you have two forces that in their own way need to be protected. And can you really protect both? And I think Lucha Underground answered, especially with how they booked the post-match, that yeah, you can protect both. But with that said, I'm going to hand it back over to you because I want your thoughts on the post-match.
Absolutely, yeah. The post-match, I mean, really, it's just your classic Matanza beatdown. Honestly, it felt really similar to the beatdown that he delivered on Ray in Aztec Warfare 3 after Ray pinned him, after that long sequence of everyone hitting their finishers on him and then Ray hitting the Yoshitonic for the win. It felt very similar to that, but he didn't go as far, and he ended up carrying Ray to the back. So I'm hoping that the first scene we get next week is a cinematic where we get to see the fallout of what Matanza did to Ray here.
Yes, because I love that it wasn't just a beatdown and like that Ray like wasn't loaded into an ambulance like Pentagon Dark was. You know, I believe that was a week after Matanza's initial debut in season 2.
Yeah.
You know, I love that he does get carried off into this unknown area. So yeah, Cueto, I'll tell you what, again, man, not to show my cards too early, but this is again another week where Cueto makes a lot of plays because he takes the gauntlet for himself to further his own agenda of making Ultima Lucha Trace the biggest show possible. So we presume, but I think that's a very educated presumption that you made in live reactions and that I co-signed on to. And then you've got him directing traffic with Matanza, which, you know, I mean, commanding a monster like that, you've already got to feel good. But now that monster's gotten for you, again, a guy that calls himself the King of Lucha Libre, and you could really argue has earned that name from the people themselves. So, yeah, another very, very productive week, or productive episode, really, for Dario Cueto. And I agree with you. I hope that the tone they set for the penultimate episode of Ultima Lucha Trace is where is Ray? You know, and they answer that question directly. So we shall see. But do you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I don't really have anything else that I want to add. I just absolutely love this episode of Lucha Underground, man. I think the final match was really good. It lived up to the main event billing that it got, and it kind of made me kind of feel stupid because I was really disappointed that Azteca and Pentagon didn't main event, but Ray and Matanza proved me wrong, and the writing and the storyline proved me wrong, and then Matanza carrying Ray out, even if we didn't get a post credits cinematic, was definitely the right beat to go out on, and I love that.
I completely agree. With that said, let's move right along to our next segment, high spots and low shots. I mean, hell, my low shot's Rey Mysterio. Yeah, he lost the match, even if his foot was on the rope. You know, the ref didn't see it. It was registered as a 3 count. But even if the match continued and all that hullabaloo and all that crap, it doesn't change the fact that Ray got the crap beat out of him in the post-match by Matanza, and he's now just a lifeless carcass whose life, whose everything is at the whim of Dario Cueto because we don't know where he was taken to. So, yeah, Ray had a really shitty night tonight, that's for sure.
Yeah, he really did have a shitty night tonight, but I think Prince Puma had a worse night because, yeah, Ray lost a match, but there wasn't really anything on the line on that match. But Puma, even though there wasn't technically anything on the line in his match, he lost to the guy that he's going to try and have to beat. And if he doesn't beat him, he literally has to retire from Lucha Underground. So that's a little on the intimidating side. I would be worried if I was Puma.
Yeah, I would definitely feel the anxiety of that if I was Prince Puma as well. Great pick. And again, you know, I probably risked showing my hand too early, but my high spot, again, this might even be for the second straight week because I feel like he was my high spot last week, but I have to go with Dario Cueto again. I mean,
yeah,
this was a guy.
He was your high spot last week. It was one of yours. I think it was yours, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, man, this has been a long time, I think, since this has happened in the history of TWitWoW where we have a back-to-back high spot from one of us for 2 weeks straight. And yeah, I gotta go with Cueto again. Look, I adore Johnny Mundo, but let's be honest here. The most he did this week was bench Ricky Mandel, which should happen every time that's a discussion. And, you know, he pinned Prince Puma, which is a big deal. I don't want to diminish that. But Dario Cueto, again, is getting amazing promotion for Ultima Lucha Trace because if you're him and you saw Mundo pin Puma, it's like, oh yeah, that's the kind of tension I want for my main event. And then when we're talking about Cueto directly and less in an abstract way, he played a huge part in that cinematic with the gauntlet, taking it back. So now he decides its fate. And I think, again, you had a very educated guess about what he's going to do with it. Further his Ultima Lucha Trace event. Make a triple threat match between Cage, Jeremiah, and Muertes for the gauntlet. And who wins? Dario, because that's going to be a very violent triple threat that's going to send the believers into a frenzy that's going to make Ultima Lucha Trace a success. And then beyond that, all the stuff with Matanza that we just talked about. He got his revenge on Ray for assaulting him, and his revenge isn't even done yet, because even though Matanza got a pound of flesh doesn't mean that Cueto did. Cueto probably has his own machinations in mind for what he wants to do to Ray, and he can fulfill all of them. Why? Because he's got muscle in the form of his baby brother backing him up. I'm sorry, but for the second straight week, Dario Cueto proves what we've known for 3 seasons now. He's untouchable, and he's running this shit, and that's not going to change for quite a while. And when it does change, I actually shit my pants thinking about what's going to take its place. So, yeah, Dario's my high spot, man.
Yeah, man. I can definitely dig that. You know what, though? That kind of leaves me open to a really easy high spot. I'm just going to take Pentagon Dark, man. He had a pretty solid win tonight over El Dragon Azteca Jr., the guy that broke his right arm, or his left arm it was his left arm, because Black Lotus broke his right arm. So he got a little hint of revenge there, and he won an Aztec medallion. He's the final entrant into the Gift of the Gods, which is the ultimate sort of opportunity, because he did get to the finals of the Cueto Cup, but he lost to Puma. But now he has a back door to get into the Lucha Underground Championship picture. So he's got that option now. If he just wins Gift of the Gods, he can cash that in, man. He's got that chance again.
Yeah, so huge night for Pentagon Dark. I completely agree with your pick, and I love it. And yeah, he did round out our Gift of the Gods match tonight, and he's definitely got to be considered one of the favorites to become Gift of the Gods champion. With that said, do you have anything you want to say about the 100th episode of Lucha Underground and closing tonight?
Whew, man, it's hard to believe we're at 100, but it's been such a great ride. I'm so glad we started covering the show in November of 2014 when we did. Man, I can't believe it's going on 3 years now that we've been covering Lucha Underground. It's been such an amazing ride. The show, the people involved, just everything about it has been wonderful. This is a really great episode that we can kind of hang on a pedestal and say this is the 100th episode, and this is how far we've come from episode 1 to this. It's such a huge jump, I think, because really, I like episode 1. Like, I'll go back and I'll watch episode 1 sometimes just to, like, for the nostalgia, and it hits me hard with like how underappreciated I think early episodes of Lucha are, because, like, don't get me wrong, some of the commentary, specifically from Stryker, is shoddy as hell and questionable at best. But the matches are still great. The stories are all there. And they start you off immediately, like, setting up lore, which is immediately sets this apart from any other wrestling show, because no other wrestling show goes out of its way to set up lore. They just kind of have lore develop over time eventually. But Lucha Underground immediately gets you in. Like, the first scene in Lucha Underground ever was El Dragon Azteca saving El Dragon Azteca Jr. from a bunch of thugs that were beating him up using Lucha Libre. It was amazing. Like, I love how far Lucha Underground's come, and I can't wait to see another 100 episodes, and then even more than that.
You know what? I think your sentiments were beautifully expressed. I really can't top that, but I will say for myself that I have said time and again that I look at the Lucha Underground team, from the roster to the writers to the people that do the sound effects, which are always on point. Just everybody that has a hand in this is the hardest working crew I think you'll ever see in pro wrestling. They're like a family, and I think what they've done for 100 episodes has been beautiful. I don't think it's hyperbolic to say that it's been ahead of its time. When you look at the current crop of pro wrestling, I think this is just so different and so distinct from everything else that's offered. And I do think it's set a trend. I mean, hell, I'm not ashamed to say it. I'm not shy about saying it, because we even said when, Impact Wrestling would do, its stuff with like the final deletion and this and that, Lucha Underground set the trend for that. They gave it that appeal in my mind, and that's what I'll always believe. I think it's an amazing show. I can't wait until we're having, you know, this kind of emotional moment on its 200th episode, and then its 300th and 400th and so on. You know, we need Lucha Underground. Pro wrestling needs Lucha Underground. I think it really honestly makes the industry better, and I've been privileged to call it and to cover it with my cohort and commentary here, and we look forward to keep doing that in the foreseeable future. So guys, with that said, this has been Lucha Underground. This has been TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John. That's my cohort and commentary, Ashton. Guys, be sure to comment, subscribe, and like the video. The more likes you leave, the more likely we are to be the top search result for Lucha Underground reviews on YouTube. And when you're the best at what you do, the top is the only place that you belong. Give a quick rundown, guys. You already know all Lucha Underground content can be found in the description box. My cohort and commentary has organized it by playlist, but I'm personally fond of the All Lucha Underground Content Ever playlist. This way, if you're a newbie, you know, you can start right at the beginning. And if you're more experienced and you want to relive some memories, like maybe Ashton's live reactions to Prince Puma versus Mil Muertes from the very first Ultima Lucha, it's all right there in that playlist. So the Lucha Underground goodness doesn't have to stop. It's all right there for you in the description box, as is all the media that TWitWoW is a part of, from our TWitWoW to the TWitWoW Facebook, from our Twitter, I should say, to the TWitWoW Facebook, to the TWitWoW Reddit. Everything's in there. The two pieces of media, though, I do want to single out. One, the Teespring. We've got an Emma t-shirt, the real face of the Women's Revolution. I think it's the best shirt that Ashton's ever made. If you haven't ordered one yet, you're going to want to do so, because Emma's going to No Mercy. She's fighting for the Raw Women's Championship. And who knows, folks? I mean, we haven't done No Mercy preview and predictions yet. That'll be coming in a few weeks. But she may very well be Raw Women's Champion. Don't you want merch of the Raw Women's Champion? Of course you do. So be sure to pick up a shirt. If that doesn't really do it for you, we've also got an I'm Not Finished With You t-shirt. Braun Strowman's been on a tear. We know he's not finished with Roman Reigns. He's not finished with Brock Lesnar. He's not finished with anybody. You don't have to be finished with anybody. You can get an I'm Not Finished With You t-shirt to tell every obstacle or every person that's ever rubbed you the wrong way, I'm not finished with you. Hiccup not included. All right, guys, with that plugged, I want to move on to the Patreon, specifically the Discord. $3 a month to get Discord membership. To me, I think it is the best thing that we are currently offering all of the TWitWoW faithful. The Discord gives you the most intimate access into TWitWoW to date. You can talk with Ashton and myself about wrestling, video games, Game of Thrones, Mae Young Classic, anything your heart desires. The Discord is there for. And again, at only $3 a month. And for those long-standing patrons that keep donating and keep donating and keep their membership active, those donations accrue. So the example I always like to give, say you're a member of the Discord for 10 months. 3 times 10 is 30. That's $30 saved up that you can cash in for a live reaction to a 3-hour show. So I've always called it the win-win-win of the TWitWoW Patreon, and that's exactly why. If you're not a member of the Discord, you're going to want to donate. You're going to want to be a part of it for the month of October, because that will be the SmackDown Live, Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, and other events will be going on there. As far as content goes, most immediately this week, no NXT review this week. That's returning next week. I discussed that with Ashton last night. But we have 3 Patreon requests this month, the first of which is going to be fulfilled, I believe, Ashton, if I'm not mistaken, Friday of this week. Friday.
Yes, that is correct. 9:15, Friday 9:15 at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. We will be doing a double video, a live reaction, and a review, just like what we did here tonight with Lucha Underground, to Canadian Stampede 1997.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. Canadian Stampede 1997. Have no clue what I'm in store for with that show, which that's part of the excitement. So I'm not going to go into the other 2 Patreon requests. Of course, I'll advertise those when we get closer in proximity to doing them. But yes, Friday, 5 p.m., Canadian Stampede, 1997, live reaction and a review. They went for the whole bundle, folks. I mean, that's a dedicated fan right there. And then looking into the far future, we know that September 28th, the last Thursday of the month, will be Q&A. I've already gotten a good bit of questions, but you guys still have a ton of time, just a little over 2 weeks, to get your questions in for Q&A. You already know you can submit them through YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Discord, and it's 4 questions per Q&A. You can divvy them up however you like between Ashton and myself, and you can ask pretty much anything you want unless we say otherwise. So go nuts, guys. You got plenty of time. No reason why your voice can't be heard for our latest installment of Q&A. With that said, guys, we will see you again on Friday for the Canadian Stampede live reactions and review. Until then, tune in and peace out.